left, right.
Yo, thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about pet ownership, specifically in New York City, but pretty much anywhere. And because this was recorded in or around the time of the election, there's a little bit of politics involved. If you're not a political person, I apologize for that. Bear with me. Hang in there. We'll get to the pet stuff. And see you on the other side. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
How's this going?
Cheers.
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 Welcome to episode 53 of Sip Talk. Let's open some drinks. Somebody just stole my fucking pen. You know that, James? I can't keep a pen. I can't. The thing is, so many people come in and out of my desk. I'm pretty good at holding onto pens, but probably a couple times a week I have to leave my office because I write a lot of shit down. I make like lists all day long. I got to leave my office and track down the last person that came to my desk. That was a good one.
So what you should have is, instead of just generic pens, spend the money and get yourself a nice set of fountain pens that nobody's going to touch.
Okay, I have ink all over me. What's up, Ashley? What's up, Lisa? What's up, Kathy? So, episode 53, Sip Talk. We'll get into a couple of things we want to talk about. Now that I got a pen to write with, I'd like to welcome James of Boswell, professional bartender, professional accountant, philosopher, professional referee. Are you pretty much professional at everything you do, certifiably? We have Andreas, a battagliator.
Everything that you do, but not certified.
Well, some people would argue that I'm certifiable. So,
did you referee? You don't referee. You probably play a little soccer. Play a little soccer. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that you played soccer. I basically played soccer until I couldn't keep up with the people playing. Tequila Tuesday. Everybody's talking about this Tequila Tuesday thing. But yeah, man, I lost my pen. I'm not too happy about that. So I haven't had a good chance. I literally haven't had a chance to come up and breathe all day long. It's one thing to the next thing to the next thing. I haven't had a chance really to get into the mode where we kind of figure out what we're going to talk about. But I did want to talk a little bit about politics because you're in a speaking of certified, pretty certified red state through and through. We're in New York, which New York City at least, very blue space.
So I wanted to ask you right off the rip. I saw a whole bunch of videos of just people dancing in the streets and beeping their horns and stuff like that on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know how widespread it was. Did you see anything like that? What were the celebrations like in New York?
A lot of the streets were actually just shut down because there were so many people. You saw Broadway uptown?
Yeah, basically it happened the opposite of what happened here in New York 4 years ago. Because I remember it was my first year in New York, and people were quiet. Restaurants. It was quiet. It was like the beginning of the pandemic. That's how it actually felt.
Yeah.
It was quiet. No one was cheering. They were like, "Oh shit, the next 4 years are going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of sanctions. There's going to be a lot of deportations. There's going to be a lot of things." Especially in the community that I live in, the Hispanic community, they were like, "Oh, we're fucked now." So totally the opposite happened last Saturday, or
3 days ago. Yeah.
So those videos that I saw weren't like just like a one block or something like that.
No,
it was all over.
It was.
It was a whole strip. It was. You've been in Harlem Public and the Walls and all of these bars. All of that strip was full of people.
There was champagne bottles everywhere.
Beer, yeah, it was like totally the opposite of what happened 4 years ago.
The day that Trump got elected the previous year. The streets were pretty somber. People were very quiet. I actually went to Adam and I stepped out and we went to like I don't know, what do you call it, like an outdoor food venue and it was like people were crying on the streets. And a lot of those people had been, over the last 4 years, pretty negatively affected. And a lot of minorities, very, very unhappy. And then it was all day long on Saturday. I didn't want to leave because I was afraid there was going to be some clashing of different protesting in the street. So, but it didn't really happen. That was Saturday night, so that was the first potential time it could have happened. But it wasn't too bad. Now I think
it would happen if Trump could be reelected. If that would happen, I think there was a bigger chance that people would, especially in this blue state, people will go out there and just go crazy because they have.
I think if Trump got reelected by the Electoral College and lost the popular vote by an even larger margin than he did in 2016, it wouldn't have surprised me if we saw some rioting in various cities.
Yeah, but let me ask.
Thankfully, that didn't happen.
How are things down there in the deep red South?
So there was no talk of it whatsoever in my office yesterday or today. On Saturday, I was working a youth soccer game, and I didn't really talk with the coaches in politics. But so before we started the game, it was still uncalled. They hadn't decided the election yet. And then I think it was at halftime, maybe, when one of the guys on my crew checked his phone. He's like, "Oh, they just called it. Biden won." I said, "Okay." And the two guys on my crew, I don't know what their political leanings are. I try not to ask too much about people that I'm not already familiar with. But one of them just Trump is acting like a complete baby right now. Yeah. And I just said, regardless of what you think about his policies or whatever, you just have to look at him and be like, dude, in 2016, after you won, you went on a nationwide gloat tour where all you did was held rallies to try and rub it in the Dems' faces about your electoral college victory and whatnot, forgetting the fact that you lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. But whatever, you went on this nationwide tour to rub it in everyone's faces of look what I did. And now you lost and you are completely decompensating. And if you're going to dish out insults, if you're going to kind of do the things that you've done for the last 4 years, then when fortune flips, you better be able to take it. Otherwise, you just look like a colossal toddler.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the politics and I'm
not talking about politics. I'm talking about just on a personal level. If you're the kind of person that throws insults around, then when you get insulted, you better be able to take it in the same humor that you expect others to have taken your jokes.
Well, the thing is, there's certain things that I look at with Trump, and I was always a fan of Trump. I didn't ever think he'd be somebody who would be running the country, but I always said that, here's a guy that, he basically what he surrounds himself with and what he creates are luxury goods. So it's, I've had some Trump ties, given they were made in China. I have a lot of ties. They were actually pretty decent ties. I wouldn't say it was a Hermes tie or, a super designer tie. Definitely, yeah. But it wasn't the cheap ones that you can get at Macy's or something for $12. Even though I think I got his ties at Marshall's for $20. But I always assumed, he had nice stuff. And I'd always give it a try. I always knew the Trump buildings in Manhattan to be very nice buildings. Again, not somebody I was super comfortable running the nation. But there's a certain amount of you have a mother. I wish I had a second to think about this before I'm going to go and throw this out there. But if you're a woman and you're dating a guy and the daughter says he molested me, there's only so much you're going to put up with and be like, well, but he pays the mortgage type of thing. So I get it that the people want somebody who's Republican and has these policies, but along with that, you have these major character flaws. And I'm not saying some of his politics aren't solid politics, but is this the person that you want paying the mortgage, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of other options. And I just, it's difficult to square up with somebody along those lines. Now, I've been in a company of a lot of people who have voted that way and say they're okay with that. Obviously, it's not as bad as molestation, although maybe it's
He's
exactly
accused
that.
of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. But what I'm saying is if I have somebody as an agent or an employee that does something, I have to evaluate with each instance whether or not I want to keep them in my employ. And as an American citizen, it's your job to figure out if you want to keep that person in your employ. What's bothering me right now so much is the division in the country. And that it's just wild to witness people cutting other people off. My friend George, Lebanese guy, hardcore gun-toting. His duvet cover on his bed is an American flag. Okay, super Trump supporter, very good friend of mine.
A very good person as well.
And he's a good person, yeah. And we have different views. It's just wild to see people cut people out of their lives. I
get it though.
Yeah.
Because I think the easiest thing to look at is if you're having a discussion with somebody, are they having the discussion in good faith? And I think that a lot of people right now, I'm not saying all Trump supporters are like this, but there's a significant amount of them right now that feel that the entire 2020 election was fraudulent because Trump is saying so, which doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons. But ultimately, when you try and have these discussions with them and they just say, well, that's just what's being reported, now they're no longer arguing in good faith. You have to be able to engage on some kind of common ground. And when one side rejects what are, I would say, objectively verifiable facts, they're not arguing in good faith. And then you say, at some point, no matter how close I was to you as a friend or anything else, if I can't engage with you in a good faith discussion about a variety of concepts, then there's not much left here.
Well, hear me out on this. This is I know you're not religious. I know Andreas is not religious. Here's my biggest qualm with religion, is that they teach people to be faithful and believing despite evidence and facts.
Yeah.
And I think
that's called faith.
That is exactly faith. And I believe in critical thinking and questioning, even when science finds there's a new finding in science, the way they prove that is by trying to disprove it. So when you don't have, and you run some study, you run some experiment, and the outcome of the experiment is X. Everybody instantly, rather than saying, oh, it must be true, everybody scientific says, let's try to disprove that. And if we can't do that, then it must be true.
And the other thing is, even if like on the initial outset or whatever, you've got a new theory or something and it's being tested and it becomes accepted, it's never something that's written in stone and forever.
Yeah, in science, you can never have something written in stone because science keeps evolving.
And so, yeah.
A science 50 years ago, it might have changed now. And it's not because science is wrong. It's just because science is always evolving. It's always getting more knowledge. There's new technologies. There are new.
But that's.
I would say here's a great example. So the theory of general relativity that Einstein came up with 80, 90, maybe even 100 years ago. I don't know the exact timeline. It experimentally has been verified over and over and over again to ridiculous levels of confidence. And yet, scientists are constantly testing it and constantly looking for either exceptions or variations in it to refine the theory even further. And they're always open to new information that might exist in a way that disproves or questions the validity of the theorem. And they're constantly trying to see, yeah, this is accepted for right now, but is there more that we can know? And
I think
accepting information that is contrary to your worldview or whatever, you have to look at it, you have to weigh it for the validity of the evidence. But if something doesn't agree with what you already think, that doesn't mean that you should throw it out. You need to analyze it. And I think that that's something that I'm going to have to just say that people that are more religious are less likely to do, and people that are more politically conservative are less likely to do. That's not to say that there's not some dogmatism on the left, because there very much is, but I would say that the thread runs stronger through more conservative political
sure,
viewpoint.
yeah, and a lot of that is environmental, and there's a lot of factors in that. But I just think the scientific thinking method would greatly benefit a society.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here comes the education part of it, because in order for you to do that, you have to take people out of their comfort zone and get them into a uncomfortable situation. And I think your brain itself is using less power when it feels comfortable believing that there's a God and therefore things happen, rather than reading a book, reading a science journal, reading a science paper, and actually putting the work and the head work in it to analyze whether your options, your decisions, and your beliefs are what are correct or not. Because I think that if you just believe that, oh, God created me to be, whatever God wanted me to be, it's basically just giving up on life and just letting that God, quote unquote, push you around, and you have a path already built because of that God. Because it's a lot harder for a person that has critical thinking to believe that, well, there was a God that created me and there's things that are going to happen to me in the future. No, a person that has critical thinking will believe, will study, would read as many things as he can to understand life, and will create his own path, or at least will try to create his own path. And that's a lot harder than just believing.
Well, what he's trying to say is people accept religion to different degrees. I don't think anybody is entirely fully religious that they're going to get in a boat and and put up the what do you call it, the mast and the not flag, what's the sails, and just say, all right, we're going to steer where we go. Everybody's going to steer a little, and some people are going to steer more than others, and that's religion. I want to change direction here. We're getting a lot of comments now asking us to change the direction through TikTok and on Instagram. We're trying to engage a little more on the live because I really like the feedback. But
we should totally keep this thing. This Tequila Tuesday, it should be a thing.
We don't have any tequila. Well, we do, but I'm not. You have tequila?
Well,
yeah.
We'll revisit this topic next week.
But you know what I learned that you may, and I could be wrong on this. I just heard it, but it sounds pretty accurate. It's a Neil deGrasse Tyson thing. Who I couldn't sleep last night. Whenever I can't sleep, I turn the. First off, I take some melatonin, and then I just put the brightness down all the way on the iPad, put the volume at 12%, and I just YouTube stuff. So I got a lot of YouTube. You know Neil deGrasse Tyson? He's a guy that runs the planetarium, Natural History Museum, astrophysicist. He says a lot of interesting stuff. He does
Some
a
good,
lot of
some bad.
podcasts. What's that?
Some good, some bad.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy though, and always, he's always trying to blow people's minds, really. But he mentioned that from the distance to the highest peak and the distance to the lowest, ocean's depth, basically, is really not that far. It's about the the length of Manhattan. I think it's about 11 miles. I think our highest peak is
29,000 feet.
What is that in miles?
Just under 6 miles.
And the lowest valley, whatever trench
is about 35,000, somewhere between 35 and 38,000 feet deep.
Yeah, so we're just over 11 miles, which is the length of Manhattan. So from the lowest valley on Earth to the highest peak on Earth is under 12 miles.
Okay.
What he's saying is that if you take Earth as a sphere, and they were talking about the globe, and the globe has all these, divots, and you feel a globe with a topological globe that has raised bumps on it. That is vastly out of proportion to the actual.
Oh, ridiculously so.
And what they're saying is, if you made the Earth to scale about the size of a cue ball, that it would actually be smoother than the surface of a cue ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was wild to think about. But I think I'd love to talk a little more on some scientific stuff. Do you have any type of tablet, or you're strictly desktop?
I've got a laptop, which generally resides at my office, but I don't have. I'm not a big fan of anything touchscreen. I like buttons.
You know where I would love to get in life is where I only have a house phone and a desktop computer. I think because then you limit. My mom carries around a cell phone off. She powers it on to make outgoing calls. And I've
had days like that.
But she doesn't realize that that's an abnormal way that she's like, well, I don't want the battery to run out, so I just leave it off. And I'm like, but you realize it's a very selfish understanding of what a cell phone isn't only an outgoing device.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult to reach you.
Also, are you really that concerned about your utility cost that charging your phone every day is going to really make or break the monthly budget?
Now, my mom is a big time saver. So I don't know at what point in my life I transitioned out of this saving mindset. But I transitioned into an earning mindset. So if you want to spend more money, earn more money. If you want to do things in life, you earn more money. My mom was always, if you want to spend more money, you just save more money and then you can spend it. So my mom now, she lives in a house that was built in the 1800s. It's got 4 or 5 bedrooms. It has a barn. She'll probably listen to this in a couple of weeks on Facebook. So, but I really, and let me just clarify, Mom, if you are listening, I really respect her ability to save and the mindset she has around her finances. But and she's retired now, so obviously there's the fixed income aspect of it. But she's very much a saver. And I'm not much of a saver. I'm much more of an earner and spender. But she now resides on the first floor only of her house. And it's a big house to heat for one person. So she keeps a lot of doors closed. And it's a house built in the 1800s. So to a degree, it's meant to compartmentalize the heat in certain rooms. So she spends a lot of time restricted in the wintertime. And where she lives is very, very cold. So she restricts really where she resides in the house in the winter.
So why not move to a smaller house?
Well, but then you can't have all the guests over. We're going to go up there for Thanksgiving, and I don't know who will be up there. At this point, I think she's really kind of hoping for, kind of wing and prayer, hoping for grandkids from my sister and I. But it's really fascinating the way that she's modified her life to live in this older house. And I don't know, how do we breach this subject?
I don't know, but I got a comment on your mom. How overt has your mom been to you about her wish for grandkids?
Pretty very much so. Yeah, I think she just expects them. But she also talks about death like it's imminent. My mom's in her 60s. She could have a whole another 40 years left if she plays her cards right. But she I don't want to get too deep into it, but she basically she thinks death is imminent. So she behaves like someone who's 86.
Speaking of someone who's 86, so when my grandmother was still alive, because I kind of just want to tell this story because I'm not sure what this says about me, but one of I'm really I relish this conversation. So I've been very clear to pretty much everybody in my life that I never want to have kids. And probably about 10 years ago now, I had a conversation with my mom where she made one last kind of Hail Mary play to convince me to stop taking such a hardline stance on it.
And what was this Hail Mary play?
At the time, I was a substitute teacher, and I was enjoying the work for the most part.
Okay, I was going to say, teachers are probably not people who, if they don't already have kids, that are in a position where you can push them into wanting their own children.
Well, whatever the case is, I was on the fence about what I wanted to do with my career in terms of if I wanted to get the certification to become a full-time teacher or not. And I was having this conversation with my mom, and the topic of dating was also kind of like in the background or whatever. And she basically said, I don't think that it's necessarily a good idea for you to have such a hardline stance against having kids. And I said, but I don't want to have them. She says, well, you might not now, but like in the or whatever. So like, just don't preclude the possibility. And I said, you don't seem to understand. When I was 9 years old, you had my youngest brother. I was a very impressionable age for me. I got to see everything that goes in to having kids. The changing the diapers, the crying in the middle of the night, waking up, the throwing up all over the place. I looked at that and I said, holy hell, that looks awful. And from the age of 9, I said, I am never going to do that to myself. I'm never going to have kids. And that's like the one opinion that I've had in my life that has not shifted even the slightest. And I said, Mom, I said this at the time when I was 9. I've said it every day since then. And I'm going to continue saying this. My youngest brother, you having my youngest brother is the reason why I will never have kids. And my mom says, I know you've said that a lot. We probably shouldn't tell him, though. He's very sensitive. So now go forward another 8 or 9 years. I'm at my grandparents who at the time were both alive and were living in Wilmington. And I would visit them 2 or 3 times a year at least. And my grandmother makes a comment about how a number of her friends in the retirement community that they were living a lot of them were having great grandchildren. And she made it pretty clear. She's like, yeah, there's a lot of people in this community that's having great grandchildren. Wouldn't it be nice? And I didn't say these exact words, but it was really close, which was, Grandma, look, I've been pretty clear about not wanting to have kids, and I see where you're going with this one. If that's your dying wish is for me to have kids or whatever, then you're going to die disappointed.
Yeah, it's I think I have not spent that much. You've spent more time at an age where you're impressionable, where at an age where you can think on your own around infant children. I've never had much exposure to that. So really, the whole kind of I watch people walk their dog every day in Manhattan. And can you give me this bag here real quick?
I think I see where this is going.
The whole empty the bag. So we got a plastic bag here. All right. It's cold because we had some beers in here. But this is I would say by poop bag standards very thick.
And also very large.
It's just a grocery bag I got from the bodega. But and I'm not a pet owner. And when I had a pet, we had 8 acres. Probably 5 of the acres were mowable grass. But for the most part, we would go out once or twice a month with a shovel, and we would take the dog shit in the backyard, only really in the area where people would walk. And my cousin's here. My cousin and I that's another story. But
you just throw it in the woods.
And we'd throw it in the woods. Now, we never touched the dog shit with our hands.
Oh, that's what you get the
so in Manhattan, the whole dog thing, I don't understand. But
Worse
the
in
fact that
Charleston.
the fact, so we never kept the dog in or out. Either the dog was in the whole house, big house, dog would run around, or the dog was out of the house. We didn't even have a leash, or we just let the dog run.
Yeah, you live in the country. Who cares?
We didn't have a fence. Yeah, the dog would come home because he's got to fucking eat. But in Manhattan, the people take their dogs out, they put them on the elevator, bring them downstairs. A lot of times, I can tell the dogs are so eager to take a piss. And the people are like stopping in the lobby and they're like talking to other people. And I can tell the dog's like, holy fuck, I'm going to lose it. Because you, like when I got to piss like a little bit, but when I get home, I'm like, fuck. I'm fumbling for my keys. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, your brain finally says, all right, it's time.
It's time. But then like you hit all these barriers, you fumble with the keys, and then like I get inside, and God forbid somebody's in the bathroom, or, you know, I'll piss in the fucking kitchen sink sometimes if I have to. Not often, but it happens. But
Probably other contributing factors there.
Probably late at night. But I always spray some bleach from under the sink and I rinse off the sink. But then finally the dogs go outside. I recently learned that curb your dog actually means don't let your dog shit on the curb. But that's not what happens. But then the dog eventually takes a shit. And the people, they put the plastic bag in their hands. And then they just dive in and they grab the warm shit.
Yeah.
And there's definitely temperature transference.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And smell it.
And you, yeah, I'm sure you can smell it. You got hot dog shit in your hand. And then and a lot of times they just walk a couple of blocks, spinning the dog shit around.
Now,
and then they
I've always thought that this has to be a profoundly weird experience for the dog.
Well, yeah.
Because imagine like you take a dump and then somebody immediately is like picking it up and then just like carrying it around with you. Like the dog has to be like, what in the world is going on here? I didn't want that.
I give props to the person that actually doing that in the city, because there's a lot of people that they just don't do it. They'll just take the dog for a walk. The dog will take a shit. Sometimes the dog also happens to have diarrhea. And
Sure, scrape it through the back.
They just walk away. They're like, oh.
But this is a high price to pay for companionship.
Yeah,
Kids are even worse.
I mean, I saw.
Although
it happened 2 weeks ago where this chick was walking her dog and she was on her phone, and then she looked and she was like, "Did you do that?" To the dog. She was talking to the dog and she was like, "Did you do that?" And it was like, "Yeah, the dog is gonna tell you, yeah, I took a shit while you were on the phone." Like, just clean it. It's right there. And she was like, I don't have a plastic bag.
What do you think you were doing? What do you went for the walk?
Like, you went for a walk, and the dog thinks, like, automatically that he wants to take a leak in the best case scenario and a shit in the worst case scenario. And the girl was like, "Did you do that?" And it's like the dog's not gonna tell you, "Yes, I did it."
Well, dogs don't.
Yeah.
So I got one more for you, because the whole dog shit thing, you know, that's why I can't have a dog in. I can't have a dog in the city. If I don't have to touch the shit through a half millimeter of plastic
every day,
I'd probably be okay with having the dog, minus the dog hair on your clothes. But figure something out there. I get one of those rolling things. The other thing that I don't get is the people that they bring the dog outside, and then the dog wanders up and goes to another dog, and then there's the dog owner, the dog, the other dog, and the other dog owner. Now this dog owner talks as if they are the dog to that dog, and then this dog owner talks as if they are that dog to this dog, and then this person talks back as their dog to the other dog, and the people never once make eye contact. And then they just part ways.
I have never witnessed this, and it doesn't. But I'm not saying it doesn't happen frequently, because I don't know, like that.
It is the weirdest, and what they choose to talk about, it's the weirdest puppet show with live canine fucking puppets. It is the weirdest, and it's okay.
And they also change their voice. It's not like they talk like
no, they talk like toddlers.
They talk like yeah. They talk like toddlers. Like, But say hi, say hi to your friend.
I wish there was some way to record it. I would love to actually like do a skit, like borrow someone's dog and just do it and record it and just publish it somewhere so people could really see. And if you do this, I'm sorry, how retarded it looks. And then a lot of people also use their pets as a social vehicle, which that's
smart.
I'm more for that. I think it's a little pathetic, but I'm more for that. You got to work with what you can do. I'm more for that than where you don't actually even make eye contact with the strangers, but you talk through the canines.
But I mean, in New York, if you talk to a stranger without like any context, they're like, "Oh, sexual harassment" or whatever. Especially on these times. But if you have a dog with another dog owner, you at least have something to talk about. You have an opening line. You're like, "Hey, what breed it is, how old it is, what's his name, and whatever.
Yeah, but now you're stuck talking to another dog person. So did you really win?
Well,
you just want to get laid.
But so I don't. And people go, "Oh, you hate dogs, Jess." I don't know. I don't hate. I like fluffy pillows. All right. I like to take a nap on a fluffy pillow. I don't have to clean up shit after it.
Whatever. What's her name?
Michelle.
Yeah, you're right. Men use puppies just to pick up chicks. Yes.
Yeah, it's a common tactic. I don't endorse it.
Well, but that's my point. It's like that's really kind of transference of like if you're using a dog. If you as a human don't possess the qualities and the skills to pick up somebody of the opposite sex, and you have to add the characteristics of a dog to enhance yourself, that's a big question.
That's his point of view. My point of view is fair game. Go for
Okay,
it.
well, let me flip this a little bit, because down here, dogs are super popular in Charleston. Don't ask me to explain it. I don't get it. I'm a dog person. Justin says he doesn't hate dogs. I do hate dogs. Dogs bother the ever-loving crap out of me.
Dogs to get laid.
But no. So on a lot, like if I'm on online dating through like the Bumble or something, this is extremely common to see in a chick's profile is must love dogs, or I will love my dog more than you, or something like that. And I just don't get it. I'm like, why is it that I have to love dogs to be able to get along well with you? Why do I have to have a relationship with your animal? Why can't we just get along?
Well, let me tell you something. When you hook up with somebody who's got an animal, and the animal's like, what are you doing? I hate talking about this shit.
Well, you brought it up.
You go to somebody's house.
And they treat their dog as a baby.
That's not where I was going with that. You go to somebody's house late at night, and the dog's like, "Oh, hey," the dog wants to like be involved with things. It's a little weird. You gotta. I don't know how it is in Ecuador, but in other countries that I visited, dogs are basically there as a slight level of security, kind of like a floodlight, like a motion activated floodlight. But they also eat the scraps, and you don't go to the store and buy special dog food for heart health or brain function or for what do you call their coat? Their coat.
Fur.
Yeah, but so that their coat stays supple and I don't know, fresh or something like that. You feed them scraps. They bark at intruders. They maybe bite people. Sometimes you have to tie them up. I also grew up, a lot of my family was from the country, like the real country, not like the country that we lived in, James, but like the mountains, middle of nowhere. And they had hunting dogs. So you don't really, kids don't play with the hunting dogs and they get eaten. The hunting dogs they weren't snuggling up with you while you watch Christmas movies. These things kind of stayed chained up in the backyard, lived in a doghouse, and they got fed what they got fed. Yeah. But there's this weird cultural shift where this is part of the family, and I don't want to shit on that. That's cool. People have ferrets,
but people aren't bringing the ferret to a birthday party.
Oh yes, they
Well,
are.
yeah. Well, they also bring guinea pigs to birthday parties, right?
What?
They also eat it. In my country, they eat guinea pigs.
Okay, yeah, but
We were this close to have an experience with Justin last week. I invited him to on Saturday because a friend of mine brought guinea pigs because that's tradition in my country and I think some other countries in South America, mostly Peru, but Ecuador also eats guinea pigs. So I told him, hey, listen, a friend of mine came over from Ecuador. She brought guinea pigs. It's called cuy in Spanish, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm down." But then again, it was Saturday. It was the day of the riots, and the day that Joe Biden got elected. And either it was because Joe Biden got elected, or just oh boy over here, just
yeah, cooey.
well. So we didn't end up going.
So
But,
koi is, I mean, it's literally fried guinea pig.
Yeah.
And
For all of you out there criticizing the guinea pig, by the way, the guinea pig is 100% grass fed.
so,
Okay.
but actually, the guinea pigs were really bred. The guinea pig itself, as we know them, were actually bred to be. I don't know. I read the Wikipedia page, but they were really bred to be eaten. And the guinea pigs that we know and people have as pets are really
Not the same thing.
you
We
know.
didn't see him as pets when we first found out.
I like this fried guinea pig with some fried yuca.
I've tried it in Ecuador. I'm not a big fan of it, but since he was like, I really want to try it, I was like, sure, let's just go and grab some guinea pigs with you.
But yeah, I mean, when I don't know, I'll try anything. Are they normal pigs? No, those were. Are those guinea pigs or are they normal pigs? No, those were guinea pigs.
In Guinea, are they still guinea pigs or are they just normal pigs?
Oh, in Guinea,
But yeah,
I bet they're.
I would say going back to your comment about like that's a high price to pay for companionship. For dogs.
I believe that, for example, here in New York, this is a very, very lonely city. Like, if you're by yourself, you don't have family, it's hard to make friends with other people because people are very into their own thing. They're busy doing their own shit, and they don't have time to actually socialize with other people. And they also might not have the skills to socialize with other people. So it's a lot easier for them to talk to a dog and have a pet with them.
So instead of developing social skills, I'm going to get a pet?
Yeah, that's it's a lot easier. It comes back to, again, when we were talking about politics, it's a lot easier to do one thing than the other. And your brain itself doesn't need to spend so much energy on talking to a dog rather than talking to a person and having the possibility of being rejected. A dog will never reject you. A dog that you adopt or,
Yeah, but because the fact that the dog will never reject you makes their affection worthless.
A lot of people will disagree with you on that point.
Well, I want to pose a difficult question. Okay.
Yeah,
and I imagine most listeners and viewers are not vegan. But the question is, you'll eat a chicken. You'll eat a goose. You'll pay more for a goose. You'll eat duck. You'll eat a turkey on Thanksgiving. You'll eat cow. Lots of great steak, good beef. You'll eat a lamb. You'll eat pig.
McCartney.
You'll eat a horse? No.
Is that a thing?
No. It's
what? Eating horses is definitely a thing in certain parts of the world.
In some parts of the world. It's not very popular, and it's not very
not in the United States. It's not popular at all.
In a lot of the world, I don't think it's popular.
I didn't know. It's a third world country.
Now, but some people eat. The point that I'm getting at is, where are we drawing this line? I guess they just said there's no more eating dogs in China, which a lot of the world, breathed a big sigh of relief. They were very happy for the dogs of China. But
still big in other parts of the world. Nigeria, it's big.
But my question is, where are we drawing the line on the things that we eat and the things that you don't eat? And why are we drawing the line why are we drawing that line where we are?
There's no logic to it, is the answer.
Yeah, I mean, but if you've developed this specific affection for one of your animals and that becomes a pet, then it's a lot harder for you to eat it. For example, if I become a really good friend with a dog, I will not eat it. But my thought is not like it's not the same when it comes to a cow. If I became friends with a cow and like really good friends with a cow,
let me ask you,
I
know a
would
lot
eat
of
it.
dogs? You know a lot of dogs?
Well, some.
Okay, how many cows do you know?
Couple of them as well, because I grew up in Ecuador and I actually had the ability to be close to cows and everything. However, never been a friend of them. But one thing that I learned when I traveled to Argentina was the best thing that you can do for an animal, especially cattle, is to eat it completely. Like you cannot throw away anything. And in Argentina, they eat absolutely every single part of the cow. You know.
Well, yeah, but we eat fish, but we don't eat dolphins.
That's because we probably don't know how to cook it, or they don't.
No, dolphins are like Japan. They're popular. It's a delicacy in Japan. Same thing with
also,
whale.
I think they do shark as well, if I'm not wrong.
The sharks are popular in China.
Yeah.
Shark.
There's another thing on New Zealand, I think it is, or Iceland, that they actually have like a specific kind of shark that they do.
Probably cold shark.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying that I think, the guinea pig thing sounds surprising for a lot of people, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's a food, and then it makes you kind of question where you're drawing that line, and what you said exactly is that actually it's entirely arbitrary.
That's my point.
Yeah, and that's kind of the greater point that I was getting at, but I just wanted to kind of open discussion around it and figure out if there's a way to draw that line, if it's more personal.
Have you ever eaten shark?
Yeah, the guy Bruno, who's a chef here, he cooked a lot of shark actually.
What's the taste
like? I've had it. I had it once before when he was cooking a lot of it, but I think before when I had it, it was a bit more rubbery. It was bony. I think it must have been baby shark. It was very bony. But it tastes like
a lot of people that are in the comments are saying that shark is good. Shark tastes great. In Greece, apparently, they eat baby shark, and in Australia, they do baby alligators.
Well, but that's
in the South we eat alligator.
Yeah, as humans who have evolved on what is it? Not the hierarchy. What do they call it? The food chain.
Food chain.
Food chain. Yeah, the food chain is basically you just eat other meaty things that are below you on the food chain.
That are not poisoning.
And sometimes there's things that are above you on the food chain that collective efforts can help you momentarily, decrease its place in the food chain. But yeah, just interesting perspective that I wanted to throw out there.
April, did you had fin shark fin?
Shark fin.
Because I think in China that's like
shark fin soup is a delicacy.
Yeah, it's a delicacy or something like that.
But yeah, on that, probably wrap up. Any good shows or anything you're watching down there? I'm curious for anybody who's listening who wants.
I've been kind of. Last week, I spent pretty much the entire week just following both the stock market and political futures markets and everything related to the election. It became something of an unhealthy obsession, and now I'm finally able to detach from it.
What do you think on the stock market right now?
That the market is responding to Biden's election generally, like the one thing that markets hate more than anything else is uncertainty. Markets don't like uncertainty. And I think that the markets are responding to Biden as a steadier hand and a more predictable feature of our political landscape and saying, okay, we have less things to worry about now, which is why you saw the big pop on Monday. And then the reason why the markets were down today is largely just going to be due to profit taking, where people made a lot of money yesterday and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to lock in some of these gains today and I'll re-up later. I think that there's going to, I still think that there's a relatively high dislocation between the markets and reality, where the fundamental indicators of the overall economy are still pretty strongly negative for largely due to COVID. And I think that the markets are vastly inflated. But at the same time, a simple economic explanation is that as an investment vehicle, the markets are doing better because all the alternative investments are doing worse. Because if you've got money that you want to invest, you really have like 3 or 4 options. You've got the stock market, you've got some kind of debt, either corporate bonds or government bonds, and then real estate, and then alternative investments, and that would be stuff like collectibles. And so, like, collectibles are hard to get in and out of because, one, they're relatively illiquid, they're volatile, and they require you actually to hold physical goods of some sort. Real estate is also illiquid. There's a lot of transaction costs. There's also a high barrier to entry, and there's a fair amount of risk because a lot of factors can affect real estate that don't affect other things. Right now, interest rates are super low, so people are not terribly interested in buying either corporate bonds or government bonds because the return on investment is just so low. It's relatively low risk, but currently, like a 30-year treasury note yields 1.3%. That's so little money that most people aren't interested.
Exactly.
The stock market is by all means not doing it, shouldn't be doing as well as it is, but all these people that have excess capital that need to put it somewhere, the stock market's still the best option because all the other options are bad for the reasons I just listed.
I know, exactly. So either way, you've been a bit obsessed with the stock market lately and political futures.
Yeah, I've been doing a fair bit of options trading over the last 3 days.
Anything you got going on?
Caught me off guard.
No, nothing you're watching on TV? You know, I'm not a big TV guy.
I'm not a TV guy as well. I've been focusing a lot on my YouTube channel as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm doing these things that I have the opportunity to go out and, preview as many things as I can. So I'm just doing a YouTube channel on the neighborhoods of New York. It's pretty nice. I like it.
And the YouTube channel is called?
Andres Rotter. I actually have to change the name. I have to get a name.
All right. Well, we're obviously Andres will be back another episode. He's ironing out the details on his. We'll get him on there. So yeah, what I was saying is I don't watch a lot of TV. I usually, I'll do like a movie, once a week or something like that. But I'm usually working, and since at home I've been packing so much. All the computers are packed up. I have an iPad, which I can't. Like, I agree with you. I can't really work on an iPad, James. It's just like you could scroll through some shit, but really, there's not what you can do. So I've been watching a lot of Netflix and a lot of Amazon Prime, which I'm enjoying. I watched this series called The Queen's Gambit, which is about this young girl who's, I'm sharing this strictly for anybody who's watching who wants something to watch, but it's about this girl who, she was in the car with her mother. Her mother crashed and passed away. She went to an orphanage, directionless. She was a bit fucked up, obviously. She watched her mother basically commit suicide by vehicle. And she learns chess. And she also, in the orphanage, they basically give them tranquilizers. So imagine back in the 50s that you're in an orphanage and they give the people in they give the orphans tranquilizers. But at some point, she gets addicted to these tranquilizers in learning chess, and she realizes that she retains so much information with chess on these tranquilizers, and she plays great chess on these tranquilizers. And she basically develops this insane professional career of chess playing. But she struggles with alcohol addiction, and tranquilizer addiction. And
I've heard a lot of good things about that show, especially since the games that they use are all. Yeah, so Gary Kasparov is one of the people that contributed to like the chess knowledge of the show.
Yeah.
So a lot of the games are going to be adapted from real games that were played between grandmasters of the last century, and not sometimes they're not move for move, but like if it's a 60 move game, 58 or 59 of the moves that are played in the show are from the real game.
Yeah, and that was a very cool aspect of it. Is it is pretty historic, and they do go by the chess guides and the chess books. I'm a terrible chess player. I don't have the bandwidth in my head, which just basically means I'm not smart enough to play chess. But I think it's a great game, and I love playing tennis, but I'm not a great tennis player. I think tennis would be something I'd be much better at when it comes to.
Put the time into chess. The only way to get better is to play it.
Yeah, but I don't have the mental bandwidth to really, to dig deeper into chess. And
I play Blitz. I probably play like 10 to 20 games a day, and most of the time controls that I play are like 3 minutes plus 2 seconds. So the games are quick. Now, I'm not spectacular. I'd say I'm about an average player, but you don't have to there's all sorts of different time formats. You don't need to play like a format where you're spending an hour or two on a game and you have to think deeply about every single move. You can play Blitz where you're playing on instinct and you get better that way.
True. All right, let's wrap up real quick because we're hitting the hour mark. Somebody just commented you should watch the show The Nick, which is a cool ass show. I don't think it's new. Maybe they have current seasons, but The Nick is about doctors in their early 20s. Basically figuring things out, making shit up, using cocaine as pain meds. But every industry has this kind of blossoming period, and that was definitely. It's kind of cool to go back and see like what shit used to actually be like. But either way, James, anything you want to add before we cut?
Nah. I'm starting up a Twitter partially to promote the this channel, and also just that way, like if I come up with random jokes during the day, it's my way of writing them down. So it's just getting started right now, but it's at what? It's active right now. There's just not too much going on with it, but it's at Get Off My Lawn 204. Get Off My Lawn
204. That's at follow James on Twitter. Get Off My Lawn 204. If you're what do you call it? Twitter. If you're a pornographer, make sure you follow James. Post some comments.
Yeah, send some nudes.
Send some nudes. If you're not a pornographer, what do you call a pornographer? What's that person called who does porn? If you're a porn star, follow James. If you're not a porn star, follow James.
If you want to learn about porn, follow James.
Get Off My Lawn 204.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining. This will conclude episode 53 of SipTalk.
All right, till next time.
Yo, wait, you still there? Ah, shit. All right, well, you caught me. I'm in the middle of building the SipTalk podcast, which means I'm sitting here for a very long time listening to my own voice over and over and over again. If it's annoying to you, I fucked up, which means you fucked up too. You got to tell me what you want to hear about, how we can change the podcast. Thanks for joining.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.